I thought marrying the man I loved meant I was finally gaining a family. I was wrong. 6 months after my husband left the country for work, he came home and discovered that his mother had been lying to him the entire time. And when he finally learned what she had been doing to me, he made a decision that changed all of our lives. My name is Emma, and this is my story. I met my husband, Ethan, 2 years before we got married. He was kind, patient, and always made me feel safe. But his mother, Linda, never wanted him to marry me. His younger sister, Jessica, felt the same way. They never openly told Ethan they hated the idea of our marriage. Instead, they smiled whenever he was around. Linda would tell him, "Emma's such a sweet girl." Jessica would hug me and pretend we were becoming sisters. I believed that maybe they would eventually accept me. After our wedding, I moved into Ethan's family home temporarily, while we saved money for our own place. I tried very hard to make things work. I helped Linda around the house. I cooked dinner. I cleaned. I even surprised Jessica with gifts on her birthday. But somehow nothing I did was ever enough. One day Linda looked at the dinner I had prepared and simply said, "My son used to enjoy his meals before he got married." I tried to smile. "I'm sorry. I'll make something else." Jessica laughed quietly. "You don't have to try so hard. Emma, you're never going to be Mom's favorite." I pretended not to hear her. A few months after our wedding, Ethan received an amazing job opportunity overseas. It was a 6-month contract. It would be difficult for us to be apart, but the money would help us buy our own house when he returned. I supported him. The night before his flight, Ethan sat beside me and held my hand. "I know 6 months sounds like a long time," he said, "but we'll get through it." I smiled. "I'll wait for you." Before leaving, Ethan spoke to his mother. "Mom, please look after Emma while I'm gone. She's my wife, and I don't want her to feel alone." Linda smiled warmly. "Of course. She's family." Ethan looked relieved. He kissed me goodbye the next morning and left. I stood outside watching his car disappear. I had no idea that the moment he drove away, Linda's attitude toward me would completely change. The first few days were normal. Then Linda began making comments. "You spend too much money. You don't clean properly. You're always sitting around." Even when I worked all day, she found something to criticize. Jessica joined her. Sometimes they would sit together in the kitchen and whisper while looking at me. Whenever I entered the room, they would suddenly stop talking. One evening, I finally asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Linda looked at me. "You're asking me?" I didn't understand. She sighed. "Ever since you married Ethan, everything changed. I never wanted to come between you and Ethan." She stared at me. "You already did." That night, I cried in my bedroom. I wanted to call Ethan. I wanted to tell him everything. But I knew how much he loved his mother. I was afraid that if I complained, he would be forced to choose between us. So I kept quiet. Every weekend, Ethan called home. Linda always answered first. "How is Emma?" he would ask. "Oh, she's wonderful," Linda would say. "She loves being here with us." Then Ethan would ask to speak to me. I would force myself to smile. "I'm fine." "Are you sure?" "Yes, Ethan, everything is okay." I lied to protect him. But Linda was doing something much worse. She was lying to him to make me look like the problem. One day, Ethan called me privately. "Mom said you were upset because she asked you to help more around the house." I was shocked. "That isn't what happened." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" I looked toward the bedroom door. Linda was standing outside. Watching me, I suddenly became afraid. I said, "It's nothing. I was just tired." Ethan believed me, and that was my mistake. The months became harder. Linda started treating me like a stranger. Jessica would deliberately create arguments, and then tell Ethan a completely different story. Once, she broke a glass in the kitchen and blamed me. Another time, Linda told Ethan that I had refused to help her when she was feeling unwell. None of it was true, but I stayed quiet. I kept thinking, just 6 more months. Ethan will come home. Then we'll finally have our own place. I counted the days on my calendar. Then one morning, I received a message from Ethan. I'm coming home early. I'll be there tomorrow. My heart filled with happiness. Finally, I would see my husband again. I would tell him everything. I packed my things because I thought Ethan and I would finally move into our own home. But I didn't know Linda had another plan. The next evening, I heard the front door open. Emma? I ran downstairs. Ethan was standing there with his suitcase. For a moment, I forgot everything. I ran toward him and hugged him. But when he pulled away, his smile disappeared. He looked at my face. Then he looked at my hands. Emma, are you okay? I tried to smile. Yes. He didn't believe me. Before he could ask another question, Linda walked into the room. Oh, she's always been dramatic, she said. Ethan looked at her. What do you mean? Linda quickly replied. Nothing. She just never adjusted to living here. I looked at Ethan. For 6 months, I had protected his family. But that night, I couldn't do it anymore. I whispered. Ethan, your mother has been lying to you. The room went completely silent. Ethan looked at me. What? I started crying. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to hate your mother. Linda immediately interrupted. Don't listen to her. But Ethan raised his hand. Mom, let her speak. For the first time, I told him everything. I told him about the insults, the lies, the arguments, the things Jessica had done, and the way Linda had told him I was happy every time he called. Ethan looked at his mother. Mom, is any of this true? Linda couldn't answer. Then Jessica started crying. Ethan, we were only trying to protect Mom. He stared at her. Protect her from what? Jessica looked down. Ethan finally understood. He had spent 6 months believing his wife was happy. While she had been struggling every single day, he turned toward his mother. I trusted you. Linda began crying. I was afraid of losing you. Ethan shook his head. You didn't lose me because of Emma. He looked at me. You lost my trust because you lied to me. Ethan walked upstairs. A few minutes later, he came back with my suitcase. Linda looked terrified. What are you doing? Ethan answered calmly. I'm taking my wife home. Linda stepped in front of the door. Please don't leave. Ethan looked at her sadly. I love you, Mom, but loving you doesn't mean I have to let you hurt my wife. Then he took my hand. We walked out together. That night, we stayed at a hotel. The next morning, Ethan found us a small apartment. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't expensive. But for the first time, it was ours. Weeks passed. Linda expected Ethan to come back. He didn't. She expected him to forget. He didn't. Eventually, Jessica moved away too. And Linda was left alone in the house. The same house where she had once made me feel unwanted now felt completely empty. One evening, Linda found an old wedding photograph. She stared at it for a long time. Then she began to cry. She finally understood what she had done. She had been so afraid that her son would love his wife more than his mother, that she had pushed her own son away. Months later, Linda called Ethan. Her voice was quiet. Ethan, I'm sorry. Ethan didn't say anything. I know I hurt Emma. I know I lied to you. I was jealous and I was wrong. Ethan finally answered. I forgive you, Mom. Linda started crying. Can you come home? Ethan looked at me. Then he said, I can visit you, but things can't go back to the way they were. Linda understood. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And sometimes saying sorry doesn't immediately repair the damage. Today, Ethan and I have our own home. Our life isn't perfect, but it's peaceful, and I learned something I'll never forget. I never had to fight Linda for her son's love. I never had to take him away from her. She pushed him away herself. She thought that by hurting me, she was protecting her place in her son's heart. But she didn't realize one simple truth. You cannot build your happiness by destroying someone else's. And sometimes, the person you try hardest to push out of your family becomes the reason your family falls apart.